everybody, and welcome to Paranormal Nation Radio. Not so normal. How's Ron and Denise doing this evening? There's
We
Nigel.
are great.
Sick.
Yeah. Hey, Nigel. But yeah,
Hey, Nigel.
we are sick, but you know what? We're together. We're not going to make anybody else sick, so we figured why not have a show tonight? And it's
Good
just
thing it wasn't Sunday. I couldn't talk hardly at all.
and I passed out last
It
night.
hurt like hell to talk.
Well, that's all right. You guys got to get your health back going and get over everything and stuff like
Plus, we
that.
wanted-
About 80 degrees will help here.
But
Oh,
we
it must
really
be
wanted to have
nice.
Mhm.
I'll sweat my butt off.
Hey, Chris.
It was 22 here this morning.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
calling for
man.
us later on next week, the first part of next week, to get down
Hey,
to
Crystal.
28.
Ooh,
But that's okay. 28 for a couple hours, I can deal with that. It'll
I
be
know,
while I'm
but-
sleeping. I won't care.
you'll watch the news down there and find out there's going to be a lot of house fires because everybody's going to fire up their fireplaces and they haven't been checked.
Oh, you know what's really funny is that everybody's all concerned about their pipes freezing.
Yeah.
It's like we've already had people ask us, what do we do? You don't do anything unless it's below
No.
20 degrees for more than 5 or 6 hours. You're fine.
Right. And if it is, just crack your sink open a little bit and let the water run through it
All our
and it don't
pipes are
freeze
up
up.
underneath the foundation anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but you know, I wanted to have a show pre-Thanksgiving because I was so grateful for all of our listeners, and I wanted them all to know that since they haven't seen us in a little bit because we've been doing all that grandparent stuff. But
Right.
I will have a show on Monday, so keep that in mind, people. I will be back on
Right.
Monday. We don't have any grandparent stuff to do, and
But we'll play Nolan on a loop screaming all
Right.
the time.
And we want to thank all our listeners and everything. And we want to put a big shout out to the Dark Realm TV. It's an app on the Roku channel where we will be live, or not live, but our shows right now. We will eventually be live on the Roku channel. But right now, all our shows will be shown on the Roku channel. So everybody go over there, look up Dark Realm TV on your Roku device and download it. Right now, it's $4.99 a month. So, and I signed
and
up.
just keep in mind,
I-
we see nothing from that.
No,
We see nothing from that. But the Dark Realm TV, it's just enough to keep them up and running. It's just enough to cover the bills. So
Right.
they're not making a ton of money on it or anything like that. And I'd like to thank Dark Realm TV for offering this to us. It's such a great idea to be able to reach so many more people.
yeah. Gary said he signed
help.
up on Roku yesterday. It's gone today. What's the matter? What
I don't know.
happened to it? Because you sign up on
It helps
it.
when
and
we
everything's
negotiate
there.
with them while they're drunk.
Yeah, they put a big shout out to us on their LED production podcast last night for our shows.
LEP.
LEP, yeah, not LED, LEP, but
So-
Dark Realm TV and everything. Gary's going to try it again, but yeah, all our shows are going to be uploaded this Friday. They said on the show last night.
Yeah, we're looking for it.
So
Well, just let me know what I need to do. But I got us a guest tonight.
I've got it all taken care of.
So I got us a guest tonight who is very uncensored. And I think that,
Susan found it.
and Susan, thank you, Susan and Mike, for sending me the name. I did not realize that John and I were already friends on Facebook. We just had never, contacted each other. So I want to bring him up so we can talk to him about all these things that he's unfiltered about.
Welcome, John.
Yeah, thanks
Hey,
for
John.
having me on. Thank you.
So, John, how did you get started in the world of being unfiltered?
Okay. Well, as I talk, I want you to keep an eye on the light. When I do paranormal UFO shows, it brightens, it flickers, and it only does, it seems like, when I'm on these shows. But what happened was back in 1996, I was traveling all over the country with my job. I was working for UPS, And I decided, since I'm not a drinker, I'm in the hotel room, I'm kind of bored, I want to write a novel. So I said I'm going to write an action sci-fi novel based around the Mayan calendar. So that's what I did. I published it 12/21/2012, A Prophecy. But as I'm researching all these different cultures on their end time beliefs, it seemed like they were talking about getting knowledge from star people, people on flying shields, that type of stuff. So I said, well, I liked X-Files, and actually I liked Sightings probably better than X-Files back in the 90s. So I said, well, I'm going to, I don't know, I'm going to join this MUFON thing. I'm going to be a MUFON investigator. I don't even know what it was, So in 98, I joined MUFON, and, I figured I'll do this for a couple of years, and then maybe I'll write a book on UFOs because I'm pretty creative. So, I went on to write 11 books, and I did 30, see the light? 35 TV, History and Discovery Channel, 35 TV episodes, and a 45-minute interview on Anderson Cooper. So that's basically how I got started. Very different than most other people in the UFO field. I had no interest in UFOs at all. I collected famous monsters of filmland. I'm a Universal monster fan. Went to Comic-Cons, horror cons. And, I didn't know one thing about UFOs when I joined. I didn't know a single thing about it, other than the thing from outer space.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like an interesting way to be exposed to the UFO theories.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I bought in initially for a long time, not initially until about 2014. I bought in because I started reading all this stuff, and I was coming across things like the Fire Officer's Guide to Disaster Control, a FEMA-approved book, has a chapter on UFOs, right? Chapter 13. It's in there. It's FEMA-approved. I got it right there. I'm staring at it. I came across another chapter from the Air Force Academy, Colorado Springs, 1968, 69, 70. They had chapter 33 on UFOs, and they taught that to the cadets. So and then things that generals and politicians, all these statements. I said, well, this got to be real. There's so much of this evidence out there. And a funny thing happened along the way. I think the first crack in the seam for me, because I had bought in fully of extraterrestrials, life in space, even though I'm not a believer in evolution, but I never really gave it deep thought, and later came to realize that, well, if evolution's not true and creation is it, there is no life in space. So there are no aliens, unless God put them there. So, but what happened was I was on the board of MUFON for 3 years. At that point, I'm probably talking about 2011. I'm a multi-state director with 7 states, and I'm on their board. And so I bring all these things to the board meeting in Las Vegas, the Fire Officer's Guide, the Cometa Report, all these different things. And so it was getting to lunchtime, and I said, hey, I got a couple of things. So I said, look at this stuff. This absolutely proves that UFOs are real, right? So we take a break, and we're standing outside, and the international director and one of the other board members, I came up to him and I said, it's that stuff that I showed you in there that keeps me involved in this field. They both broke out laughing. Now, the international director was Army Intelligence, and the other guy was NSA. So and then they caught themselves and put the straight face on and said, yeah. And I said, I said to myself, I didn't say a word to them. I said, why are they laughing? Because when I presented it at the board meeting, the looks I got were like either they never heard of it or they don't want to discuss it. It's very, very strange. But that was the first sign to me that maybe a lot of this stuff has been planted over the years by the government, and they're hiding something. And, the thing with this field, though, even after 26 years of doing this, you can't get to the truth. You cannot find out what the truth is. And, I've written 11 books. I think 6 or 7 are on UFOs, but I've tried to hit different topics. I've written 2 books on the extraterrestrial side. I wrote one on time travel and the government, that it's really our technology and has been since the 1936 crash in the forest of Germany. I wrote one on the demonic side. Then I wrote my own kind of autobiography, The Ufologist, The Haunting of John Ventry. So I've tried to cover a lot of different topics, but I don't really know what the truth is.
Have you interviewed any of the people that's been abducted?
Over the years, I would say no on the abductions, because with MUFON, they had an experiencer team, and they had specialists that dealt with the abductees. But I'll tell you again, another strange thing. See, we're going to talk about UFOs, but get into the paranormal. So it's 2014, and Fred Saluga, who's like my second in command, but he's from West Virginia. I later made him the West Virginia state director. He says to me, John, you got to look at this alien abduction thing. He says it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And I said, well, I don't look at it because we have experts with that. He goes, research it. Take a look at it. No sooner did I start digging into alien abduction, and this is in between season 1 and 2 of being on the Hangar 1 TV series on History Channel, the UFO Files, Hangar 1, 20 episodes. I was in all 20. So something shows up in my house in June of 2014. Right? It's not human. It could be alien. It could be demonic. I saw it one time. Okay? So this is almost like Slender Man. I'm sleeping in my bed, and I suddenly wake up. It's 5 a.m, and I can see down the hallway, the way the bed's centered. There's somebody standing at the end of the hallway, and I'm looking at him. I'm rubbing my eyes. I'm slapping my face. I said, there's somebody standing there. He's his head's above the door frame, but he's got a square head, like he's wearing a helmet, and his waist is no bigger than about that. 12 inches maybe, very long arms and legs, and he's frozen in place like I wasn't supposed to wake up. And it reminded me of the abduction stories where the wife is being taken and the husband's laying there snoring and she can't wake him up. And so, and my dog didn't wake up either. I'll get to that, So I crawled to the footboard. So now I'm 6 feet closer. It's like 20 seconds into it. I'm staring. I'm saying, well, he's still there. I said, you're taking kickboxing. Step over the footboard, charge him, and hit him as hard as you can. Right? A voice in my head, and it ain't my voice, says to me, you don't want to do that. That could be dangerous. You want to step off the side of the bed and put the light on. I said, oh, yeah. UPS, safety first, right? That's where I'm working. So I go and do it. He's gone. I walk down the hallway. I come back. I went up the attic. Oh, here's the other thing. It's summertime, so I opened the door to the attic. It's a finished attic, and there's skylights with screens, so the cool air comes in. He's backlit. Well, I see him. That's how I see him standing there, but I can't see features because behind him it's backlit, like the attic light was on. So I can't see any features with this guy. So I walk back, and the dog, I have a Doberman, 110-pound Doberman. He's sleeping there on the stairway, at the landing, and he don't turn as I walk past him or go back. That's impossible. You can't walk past the dog because they're so light sleepers. So then I lay down, and maybe a minute or two, I don't know, it could have been 30 seconds. I open my eyes again because you're going to constantly be opening your eyes to look for him. I see a light outside, and it starts to pull away and get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and turns out almost like a craft leaving, So I don't know. I mean, so I started then looking into abductions. I started looking into, so what happens is on June 7th of 2014, I'm sitting in my den, right? And watching TV, This 110-pound Doberman I got is the nastiest thing you ever want to see. He bit me 3 times. He bit my mother twice. He is a guard dog. I adopted him at 10 months, and I was his 6th owner at 10 months old.
Oh, wow.
But we came to understand it. This thing was big, 110 pounds. We came to an understanding. When you eat, I don't go near you. That was the mistake my mother made twice, thinking she could pet him while he's eating. And and then when he lays down to sleep, or just lays down, you don't go near him. If you go near him, he's going to snap at you. You know. So this dog is not affectionate. It's like you're the guard dog, like you're an employee, and I don't go near you. I don't pet you. I don't touch you. Right. So he comes over and he lays across my legs, and I said, "Wow, he's never done that before." So I'm watching the ball game, and all of a sudden, there's this sonic boom on the wall. Boom! Both him and I turn our heads simultaneously. The picture on the wall flips up. I got 2 Indian headdresses. The feathers and stuff blow to the side. So I go upstairs. I think I might have gone up then to open that attic door to let the cool air in. And as I get almost to the door, there's this column of smell. You know, maybe it was 2 feet wide. And I said, "What is?" I said, "Oh man, the dog did a dump up here. What's going on?" Right then, I'm going. That's not that. This is rotting flesh. This smells like a dead person, right? But I would take a step back. I wouldn't smell it. I'd step into it. I'd smell it. I walk past it. I don't smell it. You know, it's not like it's expanding, you know, like a stink would. So I put the bathroom fan on thinking it'll suck it out, and I watch the baseball game. So I then go to bed. I put the TV on to get the weather. The dog sleeps on this little, you know, chair thing at the foot of the bed that you would sit on. And I see his head because he's a big dog. I'm watching the Weather Channel, and all of a sudden in my bathroom, again, a sonic boom like you wouldn't believe. Boom! Both him and I turn at the same time. So, you know, I know from, you know, even research with MUFON that they talk about animal reactions to stuff, to the paranormal. You can trust that 100% every single time. And the dog reacted every time I did. And I, you know, from that point on, you know, I really started digging into exorcism, demonic possession, hauntings. I wanted to find out, like, I became a UFO expert. And, you know, there was a time then, maybe 10 years ago, that people would consider me in the top 10 with Richard Dolan and Stanton Friedman. I wrote some books on it, The Case for UFOs, UFOs over Pennsylvania, that type of stuff. And, you know, even, you know, the MUFON, I didn't have to interview for the History Channel. MUFON told them, "This is your guy. He's going to be in your show," you know. And Anderson Cooper wanted somebody to come down, and they sent me. Now, I'm the new guy on the board 1 year. They've all been doing this 20 years. They said, "Well, we'll send him," you know. So I did that. But you know, it turned out to be June of 2014 to January of 2019. I was dealing with, I believe it to be a demonic entity in my house. You know, so that's 3.5 years. Brought a priest in. He blessed the house, and, you know, and I'm trying to figure, why is this thing singling me out? Why does it show up? And I didn't make the connection to the UFOs that, you know, I just finished first season of Hangar One. It was aired February 28th. It was only 8 episodes, so till the end of April, right? It had just ended, but there is a connection to the paranormal. We'll get to that, you know, with UFOs. So I don't know. So it was 3.5 very strange years of, if you remember the Exorcist movie, you remember when the mother would be at the bottom of the stairs and you'd hear the banging and the cranking sounds, the crackling and movement in the ceiling. Well, almost every night was like that for me. So I bring this priest in, and my dog would react. He would just go crazy. The most vicious barking at the ceiling, spinning in circles. So I bring this priest and I say to him, "Do you believe in sins of the father?" you know, because my father spent 2 years in prison. He did a lot of stuff when he was in a gang in New York City. And, you know, he turns to me, it's like a 30-year-old priest, and he says, oh, that's not true. I mean, the devil's not real. He's in the Bible to scare you straight. I'm saying, I'm looking at him in my head, I'm saying, well, this blessing's not going to work. You know, it drove it out for a couple of months, maybe 3-4 months. And then it came back 7 times stronger. It was worse after bringing this priest in, you know. And it took me 7 months to get the priest in there. When it first happened, though, in June,
Okay.
in August, I met this woman on a dating site, a really gorgeous woman, looked like Sophia Loren, about a year older than me. And, you know, it's like you shouldn't talk about demonic stuff on a date. So I kind of brought it up and I said, you know, I don't understand. There's something going on in my house. And she says to me, John, this happened to me. She was at Seton Hill, an all-girls school. And it was a Catholic all-girls school. And she goes, I got holy water at home. I know all the prayers by heart. I will come in and bless your house. And she did it. And again, it left. 3-4 months later, it came back, you know, and then I brought the priest in, same thing. But the way I got rid of it, it's really like you can't make this stuff up, is I have a friend making a movie called The Exorcism Prayer. And he says, I got 5 ministers, pastors, priests, and I got 4 stories. So he says, I need you to tell your story. It's an exorcist, a minister. He's an exorcist. I'll bring him down from Sharon, PA. You tell your story. We'll film it. He will bless you and then go room to room with holy water, holy oil, and he will exorcise your house. I said, you're in. Bring him down. We do that. It's gone. And that thing never came back. Since 2019, but there's always been something else left behind, and it comes and it goes, you know, and you'll hear these like scratching sounds in the ceiling or banging sounds, or I'll lay down and there'll be a bang, not loud, but like a boom, boom on the opposite walls. Same thing, I'll be watching TV in my TV room and there'll be a constant tapping on the wall. You know, I mean, it comes and goes too. A couple of months here, a couple of months not here, but it's like a minion that was left behind, you know, and they're there to watch and report back to Lucifer and tell him, well, you know, he cursed, he did this, you know, whatever. He lied to this woman to get, you know, he did whatever. And I really believe that's what goes on, you know, so I don't know. It's a strange story, but I started then getting away from the extraterrestrial hypothesis, you know, because I started looking, I go into some meetings with Creation Ministries. They really blew holes in evolution, the Big Bang Theory, Darwin, all this stuff. It's really cool, actually.
No,
In fact, I don't know if any of you are MUFON subscribers. I wrote an article for MUFON that was just in their journal a couple of weeks ago. In October, Reverend Barry Downing writes this very pro ancient alien article that, you know, that the aliens either created us, upgraded us, created the whole Jewish religion with the whole Jesus myth and stuff. I wrote an article. Boy, did I blow him out of the water, you know. So, but I don't know if you get the magazine or not. But so I don't know. So it's been a very strange thing where I got into this. You know, I got divorced in 94. Then I got into writing that book in 96. And it seemed like the more I got into this UFO field since 98, you know, and I never even realized that I stopped going to church, you know, never said my prayers, never said grace. I got to the point where I think in 2014, when that showed up, God was completely out of my mind. I never thought about religion. I stopped going to church, you know, all of that. And I view it as a wake-up call, you know, and we say, and I probably got it wrong thinking the devil targeted me. He didn't. God targeted me because he knew I needed to get scared straight and woken up. And that's exactly what happened, you know, is God allowed the devil to come in my house and scare me. And he stayed there for 3.5 years to scare me. and I became a reborn Christian. So I'm a reborn Christian now. I go to 2 churches, a lot of times twice a week. I go to my Catholic church because I believe there's a lot of power in the prayers and the way they're said and the words. Even though it's boring, sit, stand, kneel, sit, stand, kneel.
Yeah.
They don't give you there's no sermon. So I also go to an evangelical church with 45 minutes of music, but the best sermons you ever want to get, Yeah. But there's a different feel in that one compared to going to the Catholic church. The Catholic church, I feel God's right there with me, The other one, I'm not so sure about that.
Well, however God can get to you is a good way to go. And we believe, and if I say this wrong, make sure you speak up. We believe that people have gotten away from God.
Oh, yeah.
In our country. Is that every country? I don't know. But in our country, people have gotten away from God.
Recently.
Yeah.
I mean, I say prayers every day. I may not say them out loud, but they're always in my head, and I do it every night, no matter what.
I do too.
If I can't sleep, guess what I'm doing? I'm most likely praying.
Yeah. Well, here's something else. So all these UFO guys and gals, we go out on these investigations. It's something I learned once I started looking into the hauntings and all of that. Somebody goes on to a cemetery, to a haunted house, they use protection prayers, they burn their whatever incense, they're different, but they ask God for protection. So then I'm saying to myself, okay, so, I'm running these 7 states from MUFON, and, we've got probably, I don't know, over 100 cases a month, and I'm sending them into these interviews and stuff, and there's no protection for these people. And, I am under the feeling now that your alien abduction, that's mostly a demonic infestation. Because it doesn't make any sense that the alien for this many years comes in the middle of the night, out of the corner of your room, and the things that it does. And matter of fact, one of my books, I called it The String Theory of the Unexplained. I looked at at least a dozen of the famous UFO abduction cases, and you could just start picking it apart, which is what I did in my book. Here's Betty Andresian, here's Carla Turner. And okay, now they said it was alien. Is it really alien? Your shutters are banging. You hear these claw marks walking across the floor. I had that happen here at least half a dozen times. My dog's looking at it, and his head's going back and forth because he's looking at the tile floor, and he hears it. Well, I hear it, and there ain't nothing there. So the smell of sulfur, all these different things. And I was pretty much able to pick apart a lot of the abduction cases and say, this is a demonic infestation. Why the person doesn't want to call it that, maybe because then they feel they did something wrong. It's easier to say it's alien. Or what I found in the UFO field is, of any of the groups out there, cryptids, Bigfoot, UFOs, hauntings, the UFO people are the least religious of the whole clan, of all the groups. They were either lapsed Christians like I was, but they're still looking for some superior thing, right? Which they think is the alien from space, and it's not. But that's a big problem in the UFO field. These people walk into this stuff, and a lot of times I think they're dealing with demonic entities.
A friend of mine who's now passed, he would agree with you that that alien, what we perceive as aliens, are demonic infestations.
I agree. Yeah.
And like when you were talking about this thing in your house, it reminded me of the different stories I've heard of, succubus and incubus.
Yeah.
And people will sometimes equate those to aliens when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have to go along with, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't know squat. But is it possible because we are somewhat religious. We're not going to church 2 times a week or anything like that, but we believe in God. Is that possible the reason why we're not sitting here looking at the stars, looking for these beings in the sky?
Well, I think a lot of your Christians view the alien thing as demonic. You know, I ran for governor of Pennsylvania. I ran for county commissioner. So I'm as involved in politics. And, you know, people here know me as Trump 2.0 because I'm actually there are people who say, John, you're tougher than Trump. You know, if I could ever get elected, you know, but the real Christians, you know, my daughter's husband and their family, because sometimes I bring it up and the mother-in-law jumps right in and says, stop thinking about the devil and aliens and just focus on God and none of this stuff will happen to you. But, you know, they all view it as demonic. The bulk of them do.
Well, the thing is if we're focusing on God, other things do come into play.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe in God, and you believe in good and evil, then there is possibility that a demon could step in just to try to take you away from God.
Yeah. Well, you know, I read Gabriel Amorth and Malachi Martin's books on exorcism. And, you know, they both said the devil's already got the bad people. You know, they're shooting up drugs. They're at the gambling table. They can't stop. They have no self-control. You know, they're cheating on their wives. They're doing all that. He's already got that.
The good people. Yeah, they want the good people. They want those of us that they...
Yeah, they're easy.
He's coming after the good people, because if he can turn one of us, and the greatest prize is when you can turn a priest or a pastor, you know, to do something, then that's the big win for him, you know. But just thinking about God probably would make you very unprepared to an extent to deal with a demonic entity, because you would be so surprised, you know. And I think, you know, my background growing up in Brooklyn and Queens, and, you know, and just totally different than so many other people, the way I grew up, street smart and tough, and, you know, and loving the horror and, you know, that type of stuff, famous monsters of filmland, you know, all of that stuff, you know. So for something to happen, I knew, you know, I could deal with it, you know. And I even if it was from my father, for a lot of reasons, I said, okay, there's my brother, my sister, who would have handled this better? My brother or my sister or me? And it was clearly me, you know. Clearly that I think, I don't know what would have happened if it happened to them, you know.
I agree. I'm the same one. I'm the same person. Yep. You know, I grew up in Baltimore and Patterson, New Jersey, and, you know, I saw Patterson is crap. Yep. Oh, yeah. I lived on Patterson Avenue, not too far from the Passaic River, but I grew up in that stuff. I knew what was right and what was wrong. I knew what I should be afraid of.
Yeah.
And, you know, most of the things that I was afraid of were the things I should be afraid of. You know, disappointing family, disappointing God, you know. I guess if something's to happen to me, I feel like I can handle it.
But, you know, as a kid growing up in Queens, I never thought about disappointing God. I think the New Yorkers, man, we thought about more of, if you can get away with it, it's okay. As long as you don't get caught, it's okay. You know, because
sounds like Patterson.
We did stuff in Queens, and my father was unbelievable. He was part of the Jackson Street gang in Manhattan, and the stories he'd tell me, you know. So I don't know. It's just a different upbringing than a lot of people, and I think a lot of people would just collapse, you know. But you know, people locally knew me in the UFO field, and I had been on 35 TV episodes. So I mean, I go to UFC fights at night on Saturday nights, and, you know, I remember this one time, this I don't know what he was, 19, 20-year-old kid comes up. I got a table just for me. and you can't get a table. I got to go at 8:30 for a 10 o'clock fight. And he goes, can I sit here? And I said, go ahead. I'm just sitting there by myself. And he goes, you look familiar. And I said, well, I was on TV with the, Hangar One, these UFO shows. He goes, yeah, that's probably where I know you. So we started talking, and he goes, can I tell you something? And I said, yeah. He goes, I got something going on with these shadow people in my bedroom. And there's a small one and a big one. And I said, you're not talking to them and communicating. He goes, oh, yeah, I am. And he says the small one kind of drives the big one back and away because the smaller shadow person's my friend. And I said, man, you got this all wrong. What you don't communicate, you don't open that door. And what you got to do is call upon Jesus to drive them both out. And I'm telling him, and I said, you got a demonic encounter there is what you're dealing with. His jaw kind of drops, he gets flushed. And then, he's arguing with me a little bit that he doesn't want to get rid of the small shadow person because maybe he's lonely and this gives him some attention. I don't know what it is. And then he says to me, he goes, oh, my friends are here. He gets up, he walks over. He didn't have no friends over by the bar. He didn't want to talk about it. But I've had so many people come to me now and tell me their paranormal stories. This woman, a state senator's son and daughter-in-law, right? I'm a Rotary Club president. I've done a lot of different things, right? So they're Rotary members too. And they say, hey, John, come over here. We got to tell you something. They're telling me the story of how the woman, the wife, her grandmother had just passed away. And they would see the grandmother, like at the front door, the grandmother's standing there, and they open the door and invite her in. Mistake. Right. So now she's in the house and everything changes, and they tell me how, John, like the bedroom door is like, let's say half closed. You see these fingers come over the top and these long black nails. Right. And then you see her and she's covered in blood. And I said, you got a demonic entity there. Are you calling on Jesus? Are you using his name to drive it out? And she goes, well, I'm going to go get a medium. And I said, don't do that. Don't get. Yeah, I said, I don't get a medium,
because that's just feeding it. That's just feeding it.
Yeah, that's all.
A lot of these people, they're not legit, and I think some of them have their own attachments to them. A lot of them probably do, because then they start believing in their abilities to know things and see things, and they're probably asking the dark side to help me a little bit. And next thing you know, they're attached. But they're telling me the story, and I tell people, and here's another thing about the UFO field that I found out is Joe Jordan, right? He was a MUFON investigator. He became like the South Korea country MUFON director. He's back in Florida now. But so, he comes to the MUFON symposium. We're talking. And I was on the board at the time. And, he's telling me, John, read my book, Unholy Communion. He says that when he was an atheist, then he went to the whole New Age stuff, but then he's doing all these MUFON cases, and he comes across this woman in Florida, this Hispanic woman, that she said, she reported as an alien encounter. This gray comes out of the corner of the bedroom, at 1 a.m, and she screams, grabs her cross, Jesus Christ, protect me. It backs away. So Joe Jordan is saying, why would an alien back away from a cross or Jesus' name?
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
He digs into it. He gets permission from MUFON. He goes through their files, all their abductions. He finds 150 cases where the person called on Jesus and the alien backed away. So then he gets all in. He became a reborn Christian, even more than me, because everything with him is God and religion, and and he writes that book, and he just wrote a second book, and I think he's up to over 400 cases now where people have called upon God. So it's like, drop the name of Jesus. You never said you don't say I command you. You say Jesus Christ commands you. And that's how you get rid of aliens. That's how you get rid of demons. That's probably how you get rid of Bigfoot. And you watch all these shows, and they don't ever. And isn't it funny how you can't say Jesus's name on TV? In a lot of these shows, a lot of this stuff. I I was doing something, maybe I wrote like a manuscript, something of a screenplay, and the producer guy, director was saying, well, you can't say Jesus. You're not allowed to say Jesus, and I just saw something recently in school, right here where I live in Pennsylvania, in Hempfield. A kid brought this question, said something about, well, Jesus Christ, whatever, and the teacher says you can't say Jesus' name in the classroom. Well, the mother went down to the high school, and the principal put a blast out to everybody, an email saying you can say Jesus, and you can relate theology to history and all of that, because it is part of it. But
It is.
I mean, Jesus was a real person. I don't know
right.
why.
Even though you got a lot of people who say he wasn't, it's all made up, but it's not. But but that's the biggest thing, is you can drive all of these preternatural things out in the name of Jesus, but you got to believe. You can't just say it, if you don't believe it.
Yeah, I think the last time I heard Jesus Christ on a TV show would have been the Demon Files with Ralph Sarchie, that only lasted 4 shows, and which was a great show, by the way.
I had lunch with Ralph Sarchie in Florida last year. And
really?
I love him.
How's he doing?
I haven't interviewed him in a long time.
Yeah, I would, again, when I got into all of this stuff, he was a name. I read his book. I saw the movie.
Oh, yeah.
I reached out to him. He was a good source of information too. So I went down to talk to him, and I, and I told him, my views and the things that I went through. He's doing fine. He, if I remember right, I think he had a bum knee, and I think he was waiting for Social Security disability, But the thing was, he says, John, he says, actually, I went to his house. We didn't go out to eat. And I ate there, and he made coffee, and he had some pastries and some stuff. And we talked. He goes, John, I rarely leave the house. He goes, because of the evil that's out there and the stuff that he went through. And, there was some other things he said to me. I'm not going to repeat on the show, but he doesn't leave the house very much. He is and he said to me, you got to find this Catholic church I go to is a liberal Catholic church, because I go to classes on Wednesday nights when they run them, and I'm always confronting them on their beliefs.
Good for you.
One time they had a nun there, and they're doing this program. This 80-year-old nun gets up and she goes, well, I hope you don't think there's an ark on the top of the mountain. And then she says something else and she goes, and evolution is true. I went up to her afterwards. I said, what are you talking about? I said, you don't believe in the Great Flood? You think we evolved like apes? She went to grab my arms like a 10-year-old to shake me, and she stopped herself. That was exactly what she was going to do. Those hands were coming from my forearms to shake me like a little kid. And she goes, you got to open up your mind. And I said to her, you got to open up your Bible.
Yes.
Right. And
Good for you.
Away. Yeah, but
Especially a nun.
I'd be going to I'd find a new church is what
I'd be finding a bishop saying, you got a problem here.
But I think the whole Catholic Church has gone that way. Like you said about people not believing in God. Well, I do a lot of research. I put out a weekly newsletter called Never Socialist, and I have a site, Never Socialist USA. But I put a weekly newsletter out, and the percentage of people going to church, it don't matter. You would think Brazil, right? Oh, Brazil, they all go to church. Not anymore. Maybe 60%, well, how about England, right? Here's my Templar thing. I was knighted in the UK last October, 13 months ago. I'm a Templar, a Knights Templar. 4% go to church. 4. The churches are there for tourism. So you can go see these old cathedrals, but the people don't go. I mean, it is unbelievable. And you know what the funny thing is, since I became a Templar, is the old Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, Hungary, Romania, Poland, they and even Russia, they're Orthodox Russia, but the other countries, I mean, they're like, 80% of the people go to church, and you don't have graffiti and you don't have pornography and you don't have, a lot of this stuff that you get in England and France. Western Europe is like night and day compared to Eastern Europe. And we view Eastern Europe, like the Ukraine, as being like a little backwoods and, all of that. But I got news for you. Those people have much better values than people in Spain, France, England, Germany. I mean, it's like night and day. And that I believe Trump's he's gonna tell Europe, you got till July 1st to clean your act up in a lot of ways, pay your fair share into NATO, or I'm leaving NATO and you deal with Russia. But there's just the whole. Every one of those countries were taken over. Soros and Klaus Schwab funded this stuff, and they've taken over almost every one of those countries with liberal leaders, like this Keir Starmer now in England. I mean, the stuff he's doing. This is Kamala Harris. This is a male version of Kamala Harris. Right. That, and they've done that. And I'm on. They do a daily podcast, and I'm talking to them, and I said, well, look at what they've just did to Ireland. I was in Ireland in 2017, right? So I go back to get knighted in 2023. And now about 25% of Ireland's population is non-Irish. They're Africans and Muslims. And then this leader takes over Poland, right? And he says, I'm moderate in the middle. As soon as he gets in, he shuts down all the newspapers, media, everything. And then he comes back on a week later and says, well, this is now state-run media. And I'm fully on board with the EU, with Germany and all of those. And we have open borders, and you're going to like it. And hundreds of thousands of people showed up protesting that in Poland.
It's no different what Biden did.
It's the same thing. Yeah, and that comes from Soros. Soros and Klaus Schwab. Yeah, but you look at it, and I don't want to get into the race thing. I know you say we're kind of unfiltered, but they've come after me in the past because I tell the truth. I look up statistics and I tell you. Right. But I worked in London in 1988. And London was like Boston. Like whatever. It was. They were all English people working, right? I go back in 2008. My daughter graduated Rutgers, so we went there. I took them to France, to Paris, and London. And I'm looking around, and I say to my son, "What do you see?" And he goes, "This looks like Times Square to me. Very mixed, right?" Right now, and I don't want to get into the race thing, but right now, London is 30% British, white British, native, 30%, and so is New York City. And I said to myself, okay, look, America is more mixed. Okay, fine. There's nothing you're going to do about it now. But you think about, I want to go to England. Well, I want to see English people in England. I want to see Irish people in Ireland. I want to see Italian people in Italy. I don't want to see, whatever, Africans and all these, and people come back at me and say, well, you're racist. But, this is the truth. I don't want to see all this crap. I want, Europe is for Europeans. That's what it should be. China is for Chinese people. Japan's for Japanese. They don't allow people in. They really don't. Korea doesn't. Nobody does except for the Christian nations, right? Of the United States and Europe. And so, I've gotten to the point where I say, okay, well, who wants to destroy Europe and the United States and Christianity? Well, the devil does, right? Mm-hmm. That's who's behind this stuff. People say, what would Jesus say? I look at things now and I say, well, what would the devil do? What really does he want? Well, of course, he's going after Europe and the United States. And you saw what happened under the last 4 years to destroy Christianity, conservatism, morals. The things that they did were so perverted. It's unbelievable. Yep. And the local newspaper here, the local Tribune Review, letter to the editor after letter to the editor rejected, I send in there because they say, oh, this is conspiracy. I said, you know what? You turned from this county voted 65% for Trump. 65 last time, 67% the time before, and you've turned a conservative newspaper into a liberal rag. And you better open your eyes because you're in a far right county that's all pro-Trump. You know, they won't print a lot of my stuff lately. You know, and they know I ran for governor, I ran for county commissioner here and stuff, you know, but you know, those are my views. And that's why I'm Trump 2.0. Did you want to talk about UFOs?
No, I mean,
you know what? We talk about everything here.
you'll never. When you hear the Democrats, I call them Democrats. I call it what they are. They're not Democrats; they're Democrats. You'll never hear a word about God, Jesus, prayer, nothing ever from these people.
Nope.
Well, you know, the one letter to
They won't make fun of Christians. That's the only religion they'll go after.
That's
one letter to the editor. I put in there that Kamala Harris is anti-Catholic, and they rejected it.
Because you're anti-Christianity.
Yeah, and so what happens right after they reject my letter? She's at that event where this person comes in and asks something, and remember, Kamala says to her, "Well, you're at the wrong event if you're a Christian."
Right.
And then there's that dinner that they kind of roast people that Trump the Catholic thing, right? And she doesn't show. You know, so you know, I sent a letter. They didn't reply to me an email, and I said, "There you go. There's your proof." And I was right that she was anti-Christian and anti-Catholic. Particular, you know?
And I actually think she practices witchcraft.
Well, I agree.
I really do.
And I think a lot of them do. So let me tell you something about these temples.
Not the only one.
So all of that stuff you hear about, you know, the Bilderbergs, you know, all of that stuff, right? So when Trump won in 2016, and this is why I joined this group too, is that they said, do you remember back in 2016 or 15, there was something that came out about Hillary about practicing demonic stuff, and she was painting her walls in blood. And I said, yeah, I remember that. And he goes, we did that. She said it's true. And these guys have a lot of connections. They really do. And it's probably on the dark web or something, you know. And he says, we got that out. And he said it made the cover of the New York Times, and they mentioned the Knights Templars in Europe were the ones that broke that story, let's say. And when it came to Brexit in the UK, they were the deciding factor that influenced the people to break away from Europe. And that made the cover of the London Times, you know. So, but then what happened was they got completely deplatformed on Facebook, YouTube. Their revenues, they would get 100,000 views like that on all of their stuff. As soon as they put it out, they're making a lot of money, and they're funding Christian groups around Europe that are attacked by Muslims, you know, more in like the Slavic area and Kosovo, those type of places, you know. And now they got basically no income other than the 250 nights, you know, that they have. There's very little income for them. But that's what they do to you, the far left. They cancel you, and they canceled them. You know, it's a shame.
They don't realize that a lot of that, once you go that far left, one of the things Ron keeps saying was once your rights are gone, they're not coming back.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what these people don't understand is we as a people had to stand up and do something.
Well, I was just praying that we had enough. I didn't know how far this country had. I don't know anyone that thinks like these idiots do. Yeah. I mean, personally, I don't.
No, you know, and it's all bought and paid for. And I don't think we would have withstood another 4 years of this.
No, we wouldn't have, because I'd be at war right now.
Yeah. And that's why God stepped in. You know, it's funny. That
exactly.
Election night, you know, I said, well, I'm going to bed because, you know, it's going to be days before. I kept getting up every 45 minutes to check. Finally, at 2:30 in the morning.
We're up all night.
Yeah. Finally, at about 2:30, I realized that Trump had won, you know. And I went on Facebook and I posted something that's like, thank Jesus for saving America.
No
by like noon the next day, I had almost 600 hits on it, you know. So, and I believe that 100%. God is the one that tests you. It's not the devil. He
Right.
allows the devil to do things, but it's
These
even like
things happen for a reason.
Yeah. But you think about the end of days, right? And we're all blaming the Antichrist and the devil, and they're going to do this. But if you actually read your Bible, it's God that's going to send the great deception. It's not the devil.
Right.
God's going to send it to test you, so, and that's the way I felt with me. He changed, he got me back to who I was, prior to getting divorced. And I think this whole UFO thing I went down this rabbit hole where I no longer thought about God or religion. And I wrote a book on, an alternative history of mankind, kind of praising the ancient alien stuff and all of that. And, I wrote that in 2013 before this demon showed up. 2016, I went back, I rewrote it. I changed a lot of it, taking out a lot of that ancient alien stuff and putting it more to creation. And, there really isn't life out there. What you're dealing with is something interdimensional, and there's a malevolent side to it, a very malevolent side to it.
So the book that you changed, did you publish it as it was before and then just rewrote it as a different book?
I self-publish all my books. So what I'll do is I took it down and then I put it back up with a second published date. And it's now, this is the book you can buy. The old one's not there anymore,
Right.
Yeah. But, it's like I said, I've tried to write books on a lot of different angles to UFOs. You can't get to the truth. And, it's like, I'm looking at it, I say, okay, so how do I explain the UFO stuff from, the 1800s, so maybe some of that stuff, because a lot of it, I think, is our technology. I think since that Black Forest crash, supposedly in Germany, they got that craft, and that's where they developed the Haunebu series and V2 rockets, and they're working on anti-gravity. It's amazing what the Nazis were into. And you think about it, that's the early 1939 to 1940.
Yeah, about 100 years ago almost.
Almost,
Yeah.
85 years ago. It's incredible the stuff that they were working on. And so this latest book I wrote called They Are Us, The Time Travel False Flag. And in that book, I look strictly at the fact that the whole UFO thing is not the whole thing, most of it is government related. We got the Nazi technology through Project Paperclip in 1945. Roswell was us testing the technology. That's what crashed. The 39 crashes that you see of UFOs over the next 20-something years, 25 years, that was our technology trying to get anti-gravity to work, and that most of the sightings that you see is really our military's craft, And then I go into even time travel, and this astronomer wrote a chapter on time travel, why it's real, and and then I kind of take the story. It's a novel, but they tried to go back in time to change things. They wanted to go replace the Dead Sea Scrolls with a different version, that to kill Christianity. Think about that. The people don't think I'm really creative mind.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
Think about that. What like I was watching, some of these shows that were on. There was one really good on CBS about during COVID, and then it went off, where they had these time pods, and they were going back in these pods and stuff and trying to kill people. It was always about killing somebody famous, kill Lincoln, kill this, whatever. And then I'm sitting there watching. I said, wow, what if they went back and did something to discredit Jesus, to change the Dead Sea Scrolls, to kill Peter, something, I don't know why people don't think of that stuff, but that's how you would really change society and stuff, is you destroy Christianity, let's say,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
Right now I could see him trying to go back in time to make sure that Donald Trump was never conceived.
Well, I'd go back. Yeah, I'd go back and talk the Obamas into aborting their kid. like a good Democrat.
I agree. So there is,
and the Clintons and all the other evil.
I said to somebody recently, I think it was on Facebook, I said, well, they were talking about abortion. I said, well, look at it this way. Maybe we should just give the progressives their abortion, and that's my dog. Give them abortion and euthanasia, because in one generation we can fix everything.
Yeah,
they'll be gone. They'll be gone because they will. They'll kill their kids and they'll kill their parents. Once you kill your kids, you kill your parents. It's not that hard. But that is what the far left's about. And there's a book out there by Jonathan Cahn, The Return of the Gods. And he really opened my eyes up. He makes that parallel between pagan beliefs from the old days and what the progressives of today were doing. And he even named the gods from back then. Which ones were Moloch, with the child sacrifice, right? And Shiva and some of the others with, that were the, if you see movies and stuff, that whole trans and gay lesbian type thing was big. Any movie, anything you watch from back then, that was all part of the culture. It really was. Rome, Greece, it really was. But that's what these demons were doing to humans to degrade us. It really was. And so he made that connection between what you see today's progressives doing and how it's really pagan beliefs and their demonic beliefs is what it is. I'm just so glad we won, because now I don't, I even put in my newsletter just the other day, I'm going to cancel this newsletter at some point because we don't need it for the next 4 years. But I'm going to wait. Well, actually, I'm going to run for governor again this time next year of Pennsylvania. So I'm probably going to just stop the newsletter for a while.
Oh, that's good.
Hopefully you get there, because I know there's a lot of people in Pennsylvania.
That Shapiro's a piece of shit.
That left Maryland, left New York, left all these big cities on the East Coast and went to Pennsylvania because they wanted something better.
Well, and the cost of living here is less. I have a really good plan. I've already worked it up for running for governor. But the biggest obstacle you have in Pennsylvania, and, I don't know. I grew up in New York where men were men and they were tough. The men here are so gutless. And the state, the entire legislative stuff is full of people that are rhinos. They're
got a pansy effect.
Oh yeah, they hate Trump. I'll tell you what, when I was running for governor 3 years ago, I was down in Lancaster and I gave my spiel and everybody loved it. It's very Trump-like, right? And the state rep gets up. And one of the things I had taken on the state center and the reps over here, state reps, was they passed mail-in ballots. The Republicans did. And I said to them, why would you pass a Democrat initiative? I don't understand. What would make you support? And, the vote was 147 for and 3 against mail-in ballots by the Republicans. People don't realize that. And everywhere I've gone, I've told them that. So the state rep, one of the ones who voted against it, Zimmerman, gets up and he's talking to us. He goes, well, I shouldn't tell you this, but the night, he said, I'm in there with all the Republicans. And, when they're bringing all these ballots in and his lead, he had 769,000 vote lead on election.
Yeah.
Night, right?
Yeah, I know. We remember that.
Within 2-3 days, it was gone. He said, there was about 60 of us there, this Patriot group. He said, when it got to the point he lost his lead, the phone rang, the Republicans answered it. They cheered, they high-fived, they hugged each other that Trump lost. Yeah. This is your Republicans in Pennsylvania. I've never seen
anything. That's why they need to go.
Yeah, those are not Republicans.
They're rhinos.
It's like Mitch McConnell and all these others that you have in Congress.
Ryan.
Yeah, and Ryan. It's like you look at who votes for the budget and who doesn't. that Marjorie Taylor Greene, another Romney, right? So Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had about 22 people that didn't want to vote for the budget. Well, it was the same thing here. Out of the 150, let's say, between Republican senators and state reps, there was 21 who didn't want to vote for a spending increase. Well, those are your real Republicans. Those are your real your patriots. Right. The rest of them, as soon as they get elected, this woman I know over here, and she says it in the paper, I can't wait to get in and find middle ground with the Democrats and compromise. And you lost. You just lost. It's a death by 1,000 cuts,
See, that's one of the things that I always said is when a Republican wins, they go along to get along.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't do that. A Democrat,
but when the Democrats have total control, they're the ones that say elections have consequences. Shut up and sit down. Right. That's what we need to do this time.
Yes.
And when do you ever see us?
That's what's going to happen this time.
Well, I think Trump's going to do it. He's a lot smarter.
Oh, yeah. That's what we have to.
But you never see like the locals. There'll be Democrats in charge. Like we've got Shapiro. We had 8 years of Wolf, and they change all these things. They redistrict. They take counties and cut them in half to cut the Republican vote and throw half of them into Pittsburgh, which is 90% Democrat. They do all these things. So now when you win it back, you don't do a damn thing. You don't ever take back anything that we gave up. But
that's what they need to do.
Compromise here, compromise there, compromise there. In 40 years, we've lost everything, So
we have.
So
I was going to say the only good thing in Pittsburgh is Mike Tomlin. The rest of it's shit.
Yeah. And Tomlin's a little crazy.
Well, he is, but I like him. I think, being from Baltimore, I'm not supposed to like anything Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm a very loyal person. I became a Detroit Tiger fan in 1967. And 68, I'm living in New York with the Yankees and Mets, But I was 10 and I started watching baseball, and the Tigers almost won the division, the game behind Baltimore. 68, they win it. I'm still a Tiger fan and a Lion fan, So I'll root for Pittsburgh unless they play the Lions, But the Lions is my team, and they're 10-1 right now, so that's good to see.
Well, we know all about that.
Yeah.
They look really good.
Yeah.
And I think they threw that playoff game. Not the team, but I think a couple of those receivers, because you watch enough games over the year, and you see these guys never drop a ball. And it was that Reynolds guy. They got rid of him. He dropped 2 or 3 right in his hands. Dropped them. There was and the guys that all dropped the balls, the Lions got rid of them. I think they were paid. Somebody made a phone call. You got to throw the game based on the betting, because the way they collapsed in the second half, it was incredible. I said, this isn't the team I know. This is not. I've never seen them play like this.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't think they were ready for Super Bowl last year.
No, they
definitely
weren't.
This year.
Yeah,
they're definitely.
Yeah, unless injuries stop them.
Yeah,
seems like every week there's a key player getting hurt. So but let's
see where. That's where our fans are.
Yeah.
But again, we lived in Kansas City for 40 years.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
The
I don't
Chiefs,
watch
they got to scrape out wins against the worst team at the last second again.
Well, last minute, and then
just like always.
Yeah, and then they got
the Chiefs play down to everybody's level. They'll play up to everybody's level. Yeah. It doesn't matter who it is. Right. I'll be honest with you. I play football games. I bet on them. I never take the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I always take the other team in the points. I always win.
Yeah.
Because I know they won't beat the crap out of nobody. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
And they never let me down. They just barely beat anyone.
I just want to see the Lions get their players back, But, getting back to this UFO stuff, you look at what's going on right now, right? So, I watch these congressional hearings and stuff, and I'm watching that Lou Elizondo, right? He seems to be,
I like him. He seems like a smart guy.
The spokesman, but he's full of shit. I mean, he really is. This is a guy. This is a
guy. He's somebody I think has a lot more information that can't give it out.
Yeah, a ton of it. But he ain't working for us. He's not working for us. He's part of the establishment. He made a couple of comments that's never been addressed properly, right? So you go back over, I think since September of 23 or so, some of the stuff, interviews that hit the paper and everything, right? So Elizondo, well, let me go back even further. David Fravor, the guy with the Tic Tac video, the pilot.
Yeah.
I contacted him maybe 4 or 5 years ago to come speak. I run the MUFON conferences in Pittsburgh, Philly, and we were doing it up in Erie. And I said, we'd like you to speak at either Pittsburgh or Philly. And I said, this is a MUFON conference. And he said, UFOs and aliens? And I said, well, yeah, it's a UFO conference. He goes, I don't want to talk about aliens. I'm not interested in talking about aliens. And I said, oh, okay. So I hung up and I'm saying to myself, well, I guess the Tic Tacs had nothing to do with extraterrestrials then. That has to be domestic technology. You see, this is where they screw up, So he played his hand there, and he showed that he doesn't believe it's from space, right? So now you get to Elizondo, and he makes a couple of comments, right? He says that people are going to find out that these aliens are not, these UFOs are not monsters from space, but are neighbors. And he don't explain what he meant by neighbors. Like something, I wish I could be at the congressional hearing, and my congressman is very much into this, and I was telling him, I would question this guy, So what do you mean by neighbors? Do you mean Iran or do you mean Atlantis? Like, what do you mean by that statement? He never clarified it, right? Then he makes this other comment to the New York Times. He goes, I want to blow up the UFO field. Meaning,
okay, so what's that mean?
Well, that he explained. He says we want to get rid of, anybody, these amateur UFO people, meaning like MUFON investigators, all the amateurs, we want this to be run by the government, and we're pretty much where now they've taken everything over. They want to get rid of MUFON like they got rid of NICAP and APRO and all those other groups, right? So they want to control it. This is typical military, right? They want full control over it, and you don't ever get to see, like now, you don't ever really get to see what they have and what's real and what's a false flag. But he basically, that's what he said, is that he wants to get rid of all of the UFO groups and amateurs and make it all professional astronomers and NASA people, NASA running everything, right? So then you get an admiral from the Navy gets on, and he makes a comment that he thinks that anybody putting out, bad information, making up stuff on Facebook, whatever that type of, they should be arrested. That this UFO field should be completely controlled by the military.
So state-run media again.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, well, that's what that's their mentality.
So Space Force, basically.
Yeah, the Space Force, and the Space Force. I love Trump, but he didn't create that in 2019. That thing has been there. Actually, if you look the Space Force up, it's been there since 1982. They put spy satellites up. But in that book I wrote, They Are Us, I say the Space Force has been there since 1945. But the main thing is, David Grush, when he, I trained people. I was certified in behavioral analysis, body language. I was head of security at UPS. I'm watching this guy. Yep. So there are extraterrestrials, and you've seen biologics, and He's so full of shit. He's another one. They took this guy, put him up there, and threw this stuff out. But again, when you get to Elizondo and those, they're contradicting themselves. Saying that, well, I can't talk about this because I signed, NDAs, and I'm putting me in a position I can't talk about it. But then, and then in the next breath, in another question,
they'll sneak something out.
Yeah, it's not about, it's about the technology, basically,
Yeah, they're marionettes is what they are. They're moving to the beat of somebody else's drum. I mean, that's all that there is. It's just like when during the election, they're throwing all this crap out. and they're going, look over here. And while nobody's paying attention to the mouth over here that's actually doing all the talking, they're just paying attention to.
But why, after 75 years of denial and saying you don't investigate UFOs and there's nothing to it and there's swamp gas, right? Even though they're the actual swamp gas, why flip now? And I was part of this to an extent. In 2009, Robert Bigelow starts funding MUFON investigations. I think it was $564,000 a year to pay for us to rent cars, stay in hotels. I thought it was great. I said, this because we pay for this stuff ourselves. And now Robert Bigelow came forward and he's paying for it. Well, then and again, everything's going fine for about 10 months. And Carry On, the international director who worked for the CIA as a Russian linguist, right? All of a sudden, he does stuff and destroys this agreement with Bigelow, and he pulls out, and now we got no funding, right? So then it's like 2 years later, we find out that was not Bigelow's money. Harry Reid got like $75 million from the government, and that was all part of it to fund MUFON. And all they weren't interested in abductions. They weren't interested. All they were interested in was anything you could describe of how it flew, contrail colors. Tell us about propulsion and that type of stuff. And if you ever got a piece of a crash or anything like that, but why do they flip? Right. That was maybe 2012 or 13 that we actually found out the truth. This was a government program. And then in 2017, it all comes out here again.
Yep.
It's Academy to the Stars, right? So I'm thinking to myself, so if I'm in their board meeting with the Pentagon, how do we get young people involved in the UFO thing and get them on our side? Oh, we got a rock star, right? From Blink 182. So this guy now is the front man doing all the talking, right? I can't think of his name right now, from Blink 182. Yeah. And then they're selling shares in it. And they raised like $2.3 million selling shares in their company, and they spend $32 million. And that whole thing collapses, And so then
money laundering.
Yeah. Well, they were stealing it. They were stealing the money.
It's Vegas. What else would it be?
And they said, I remember, and I gave a presentation on it. They had a piece of a UFO, and the UFOs can travel through time and space and through water like it's not even there, and all this. So where is all the proof? Where is all this stuff that the government has? They haven't brought one thing forward, but it's con job after con job. But my thing is, there's a reason they're doing this. There has to be a reason. And
it's distraction.
But at some point, you say it's a distraction, but if you go out and talk to the general public in your food store, in the bank, wherever you are, most of them don't know anything about the UFO stuff. No. They'll say, oh, yeah, I think I heard something that Congress was looking at it. They don't know anything. So if they're trying to make this big impact, so let's say Elizondo said, yep, aliens are real. And we did say we got one. I'm told that I'm told that we have a body, right? Why isn't that on the cover of every newspaper in America? And on CNN and Fox News, we have an alien body. It's not. See, there's a game being played here.
There is.
And so
I got
what's the end game? Why does the denier become the facilitator after 75 years? What are they going to tell us? And one of the things that comes up a number of times is a lot of the Air Force people are very religious people, which I found that out. Actually, I have two cousins that went to the Air Force Academy. One was a general. He just passed away. But when I went to his funeral and other times being around him, and my other cousin, his wife just passed away, very, very religious people, the Air Force brass, right? And they made a number of comments to the Pentagon that you better read your Bible, because this whole alien thing is the devil. It's demonic. It's a trick is what it is. So it's either going to go one of two ways, right? Did you ever see Childhood's End or read the book from Arthur C. Clarke or see the sci-fi series? Well, this UFO shows up, right? And they never show the occupants. And I believe we have this technology, and that's a lot of what we've seen over the last 20, 30 years, right? So, and I think we've been out to the stars already. NASA, the space shuttle, the Air Force, that's all the public view. And it does turn out that the Navy was the one running it all along. It wasn't the Air Force. So one or two things going to happen. They're going to show up. This is Childhood's End also, right? And then they do stuff. They give us some cures. They clean the environment. Everybody, and they tell us that, we went through the God thing ourselves. It's not true. Those are old beliefs, and it's all evolution, and you are the top of the food chain, right? So now, but then you have to take this implant, you have to, they end up taking all the children, right? And it turns out when he finally shows himself, he's a flaming devil, 9 feet tall with big leathery wings and stuff and a tail. It was a demonic trick, And so that's one scenario that's possible. If the progressives had won, I'm surprised they didn't bring it out on the Joe Biden, except he was so lost. He would have screwed the whole thing up and tried to explain that it's the devil, or he would have hidden the corner once he said the devil. No,
that would have been the flaming pile of poo.
Yeah. But, or the other side, which is what some of these, I saw something actually, it might've been on Fox or I saw it in the paper, an article that said it's actually, this was the opposite of what I believed. The progressives are so afraid of the UFO question because they're afraid that if contact's made, just like Jodie Foster in Contact, the first question is probably where'd you come from? The second question is, do you believe in God? Were you created? And the progressives are so afraid of that question of the aliens saying, yes, God created us. We're made in his image or give some story, but a pro-God story. I never viewed it that way. But I think that's where this UFO question is with the government. It's going to go one of two ways. The great deception and the apostasy, telling us something that's not true, and it's us in the craft, right? And how hard would it be to even stage something with aliens? It's all CGI, So I don't know. I really think that's the end game with this. It's either going to be very pro-God, and then our society turns back to the way it was, or it's going to be the other way, and it's an apostasy and a trick. And then the progressives get what they want, but they just lost. So that's not happening under Trump. And one of my friends said, well, what if Trump is the Antichrist? Think about it. With the following he has, if he turned, could he be the Antichrist? I said, well,
the thing is we all, as Christians, as Americans, we need to hold him accountable.
Yeah.
For whatever it is he's doing, just like we did with Biden. If when we weren't happy with Biden and Kamala, we made our voices known. We have to make our voices known this time too.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. He's in office because he works for us, and we need to make sure he understands that.
Yeah. But there's an end game to this thing.
There always is.
They didn't just come forward in 2017 because for no reason. I mean, they're talking the opposite of what they had said for the prior 75 years. Let's say since 1942, the Battle of LA. So I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
This comes down to good versus evil. I mean, we can't let them win. That's
right.
I agree.
When you're talking about the people in that speak about the UFOs, Lou and the other guy. Another one that speaks out of both sides of his mouth is Travis Taylor.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, they had him. At some point, he was part of this Pentagon group for a few months.
Right.
Oh, and he was. There was something there where it came out. Maybe when he was doing the, that Skinwalker
Skinwalker.
Something. Yeah, he was on Skinwalker Ranch, and then they found out that all along he had signed a non-disclosure agreement with the government, and he never told the network.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Yeah, he's still on there as far as
I know. He's still on. Well, they didn't want
Yeah, he's still on there.
But I don't think he's involved
5
with
years or so.
Yeah, but he's not involved now with Lou Elizondo and all of those.
Right.
There was a couple of months where he was part of the team, and he announced himself as being the front man, the main spokesman for the Pentagon on this. And then all of a sudden something happened between the TV show and some truth came out with him, and then boom, he's back on the TV show and he has no part in this. But,
yeah, they showed him addressing Congress.
Yeah.
And then that's when all the guys apparently found out, and you could tell by the looks on their faces that they were kind of pissed.
Yeah.
That he wasn't totally honest with them, and he goes, "Well, I had an NDA."
Yeah.
Well, you know what? NDAs are not airtight.
Yeah, it's not an end all be all.
I mean, I've signed I don't know how many NDAs in my life, and eventually you can talk. They're not never ending.
Yeah. Well, he never told anybody he signed an NDA. It's like if you ever hear Nick Pope speak, and I've brought him to Pennsylvania a number of times, he always says there's certain things I can't tell you because I'm still, have obligations to the British government, and it's just some things I can't discuss.
He seems like that. I mean, he does usually tell you what he can tell you.
Yeah, he does.
From what I've seen.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He's an interesting guy.
He is. I've had him here. He's come out here at least 6 times between Pittsburgh and Philly. I just had him last month. No, beginning of the month. When did we do our conference? November 1st and 2nd. He spoke in Philly. He always has a good presentation. He's pretty good. Travis Walton now is becoming. It's like, I don't know. He's supposed to come to Pittsburgh to speak in April, and it's like you can't get him to answer the phone. You don't return messages. It's becoming very difficult.
He's pretty much doesn't want to even talk about it anymore. He really. I mean, we saw him 3 years ago.
2019.
4 was it really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he said that was probably one of the last ones he planned on doing.
And then he's done a few more since then.
But he's still doing some, but it's not very often.
I talked to him maybe about 6 months ago. He actually answered the phone, and I said, "You want to come back out to Pittsburgh and do it?" And he goes, "Well, if I don't have something better going on," which I didn't care for, I didn't like that response. But then he said,
"Right,
you'll have to fly me and my assistant out." And then he had to get off the phone. So I got off the phone and I said, "What does he mean by his assistant? We don't fly 2 people out to speak at the conference." I found out he got remarried. It's a 39-year-old woman. So I guess she's handling and helping.
She's very pretty and she's very nice.
Yeah. So, but I think the thing with him was he had a stroke in England. He went over there to speak and he suffered a stroke. And I don't think he didn't get the proper care. And I've seen actually when I did have him out in Pittsburgh and Philly 2 or 3 years ago. It was maybe right after COVID. He's not as sharp. He sits there. You see him sit at his table and somebody comes up and then he perks up and stuff. So
yeah, it's 2019 we saw him. Yeah, he said he was having some health issues.
Yeah,
that's why he wasn't planning on doing much.
So I don't know what I'm going to do about him coming to Pittsburgh. I've tried. I can't get through to him again. So we may have to just move on to somebody else.
But this story never changes.
No,
it's just nothing.
What are your thoughts on that? Was he truly abducted, or was he taken by demons and tried to be changed over to something else?
No, I don't think
was he possessed.
I don't think it had that one. I don't think had anything to do with demons. I was speaking at that big UFO conference with him in 2012 in
All the other guys saw it too.
in Nevada, and I said to him, we were there. It was the first time I met him, and I said, Travis, don't you think that the aliens weren't trying to help you? I said, isn't it possible that you got too close and a static discharge hit you and knocked you 20 feet and they revived you? And he goes, John, that is exactly what I'm thinking. And really from that point on that we talked, it was the big conference in Nevada, south of Nevada. They do that big
Contact in the Desert.
Yeah, Contact in the Desert. And it really, since that point, that has been his line, was that this was an ambulance call. But then when he describes it, again, I say to myself, was that our military? Because he encountered those grays, right? But then he ran down the hallway, whatever, and he ran into this male and female that were like Nordic, very fit, muscular, and they brought him back and put that mask on and put him out. And next thing he wakes up, he's back in town. But that could have very well been a American craft. They were there in the woods for whatever reason, and he came up with his pickup truck. And I think there was a static charge, and they took him in and they revived him and everything. But how do I explain those grays? I don't know how to explain that unless they're androids, robots.
You know what it could be? It could also been that he was drugged.
Oh yeah,
Special K can do that to you.
Oh yeah. And then they put these screen memories and stuff in. Well, let me mention a couple of things. I don't know how much time you got left, but
have as much time as you need.
Oh, okay. I've done shows of 4 hours and 23 minutes.
No, we're not doing 4 hours.
Okay,
we'll do another 20 minutes, but that's it.
Okay. But so I mentioned this paranormal side to UFOs, like when this thing showed up and all of that. So I wrote that book, The Ufologist, The Haunting of John Ventry, right? So get this. I go to my first UFO conference. I joined MUFON in 1998. 1999, they have their symposium in Northern Virginia, D.C. area. So I go. I said, well, it's only 225 miles away. I might as well attend, see what this is all about. So I go. It was really good. Big crowd, speakers. I remember it, vividly. And then we break for lunch. And before we break for lunch, this woman came in, very attractive blonde woman. I'm divorced, right? She sits down a couple of rows from me. I see her. So at lunchtime, I get behind her and I say, hey, can I eat with you? I'm here alone. Yeah. She had albino features, she had gray bloodshot eyes, very, almost white eyebrows, but her hair was blonde. Whether that was dyed, I don't know. So we just had a normal conversation stuff, right? And it was the first day that it was the Saturday, let's say. So she got there at 11 and 12 was lunch. We go back at 1. She never came back to the event. I thought that was very weird. And I was saying to myself, well, would a hybrid show up at a UFO conference? And I think, so, yeah, they want to know what we're talking about, right? And I always said to myself, that woman was probably a hybrid or something. But here's the thing that happened, though. On Sunday, I leave, and I think 4th of July, it was on 4th of July weekend, right? And I didn't stay for the fireworks. I went home. From that point that I got home from attending the MUFON symposium, I had 4 nights I had out-of-body experience. I had lucid dreams. I was having these recurring dreams of these 2 hybrid kids. My Doberman was floating horizontally with his legs sticking out. And it's funny. It was like a beige background. I couldn't see any features in the room. The dog's floating with his legs straight out, and there's a kid poking the dog like he'd never seen a dog before. I'm yelling at this kid, stop poking the dog. And he turns, he had no shirt on. He had his back to me. He was kind of muscular for a little 10-year-old, right? He turns around. It was almost like from the Twilight Zone. He had big eyes, and his hair was like all these hair plugs. like a bad hair job or something. His forearm was twice the size of mine, and the bone was sticking out. It was like it wasn't an injury. The bone was just like sticking out like that. It was the weirdest thing. And there was something in my bedroom. I was waking up like every hour. There was I could sense it. There was a presence in the room, and the lights are out, and I could sense it standing right there. I'd fall asleep, and I would be dreaming these lucid dreams. Then I'm dreaming of this creature standing right next to the bed, like it, with the hairy type thing. And I'm waking up, swinging my wrist, and I hit the column of the headboard. I almost broke my wrist. This went on for 4 days. My girlfriend at the time, she went over to New Forks UFO sightings. Here I am, a brand new MUFON guy. I didn't even think to look and see, was there a UFO in the area? She looks it up and she goes, John, the night you got home on that Sunday, there were 2 UFO encounters, 2 sightings, one in Penn State, one in Morgantown, West Virginia. And I said, you know what? You draw a line from Penn State to Morgantown, it goes right over my house. And I had a lucid dream where I was floating over my house. The peak of the house was right there, like my desk. I saw my green Grand Cherokee parked in the driveway. It was so real. So I said to myself, why would that happen? I went to my first UFO conference, and I have this like huge paranormal encounter. And I remember I took her, she sent me the information on the 2 UFO sightings, and then I wrote down my notes on my description, right? So years later, I forgot all about the kid with the Popeye arms and the bulging eyes. And all I could remember was a kid looked like Nosferatu, slick back hair, like a rat boy teeth. He was wearing a black outfit. It was like a 10-year-old. That's all I remembered. And when I decided to write my book, I pulled my notes out, and it never described the Nosferatu kid. It only described the other kid, the hybrid kid. So it's like, then I said to myself, was that some screen memory? How much of it really happened, or how much was this put in your head? But why does that happen after a UFO conference? I used to go to Chiller Theater, the big paranormal conference, the horror cons. Nothing ever happened, right? So then I told you about the stuff shows up in my house, right? So I'm on the board of MUFON. I went to a symposium. I guess that was 2014 or 15. You see the light just go bright on me? Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there talking. I'm with Jan Harzan, the international director, and his wife, who's a very devout Christian, right? So I said to him, guys, I got to tell you what's going on in my house. I said, I don't know what to do about this. Because at the time, I wasn't that versed in the paranormal side. And the wife says to me, John, I'm telling you that I have seen shadow people walking among the crowd at the symposium. I see them walking in the aisles. And she goes, I have been telling Jan, get out of this UFO field, leave he's the international director, get out of this thing. It's demonic, right? So then it's like 2 years later, maybe it was 2018 or 19, somewhere around there. I didn't go to the symposium. And apparently, somebody called me and says there were like 6 MUFON state directors saw shadow people walking in the crowd during the symposium. And they called a meeting with Jan and the board, and they wanted answers as to, what was the deal with that. And then there was also the second in charge guy, somebody Lang, I can't think of his first name. And I don't remember if it was at the MUFON symposium or he was at some other UFO event. And I think it was 2019, early in 2019, he dies, right? And he's only got like 45 years old or something, And then later on, people said, well, he might have been one of the first COVID cases, But why are there shadow people at UFO conferences? Why do I go to my first UFO conference and I have lucid dreams, out-of-body experiences, a presence in the room that was malevolent, absolutely malevolent, and then you start asking questions, you find out that a lot of people have had these experiences in the UFO field.
Yeah, I mean
Man.
they're inviting.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
inviting a
you're
lot of
opened
stuff
up.
there. And one of the things about shadow people that I feel is that it's just looking for somebody to no longer be a shadow.
Yeah, to take them, possess them or something. Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. While all this is going on, I had my sister was over with her family, and she's downstairs. I went up to my bedroom to get something. She starts screaming, John, get down here. I come down. She goes, there was a black shadow on the ceiling, like flowing, rolling across the ceiling. But it wasn't just like a shadow. It was like, you ever watch Supernatural? It had movement to it in the.
Yeah.
She said we all saw it, the whole family, right? And then my girlfriend moves in, right? So we're in bed, we're just talking. There's a little end table light on. All of a sudden, she goes, look, she looks up, says, "What's that?" From the hallway, rolling across the ceiling in our bedroom, is this shadow coming right across the ceiling, and it stops above us, right? And again, you see this it's like smoke or almost like water
It
flowing.
looks like a thunderstorm. It looks
Yeah,
like
like a thunderstorm or something, right? So, so again, these are the things that never happened before in my life. Why do they happen? I'm involved with UFOs. I think part of it, like you said, is one, the ufologist doesn't protect himself. The ufologist is very lapsed in religion and beliefs. And I think they're wide open to attachments. I really do.
I think they think that science can protect them.
Yeah, because
we know, and we found out with COVID, science can't protect you.
No, it's not. Most of the time, science has been nothing but a lie, and it's about making money for pharmaceuticals. And RFK Jr. is going to prove that if he gets if he gets a point, if he can get the votes.
Right.
Well, Tom McNicholas says, doesn't the president know the secrets of the UFOs? Or do they have to sign an NDA too?
Well, here's the proof that they don't tell you right away. Trump got elected, January of 2016, he took office. He didn't come out with the UFO, with the Space Force statement. It was either I think it was November or December. It was late in 2018 or early 2019.
Yeah, it was.
So he was in office for about 3 years. And all of a sudden, because, Trump's ego was, I created the Space Force, the sixth branch of the government. He didn't create nothing. They told him. So they waited till his the start of his final year to tell him about what we're doing with the Space Force, And even now on Joe Rogan and stuff, Trump will say, yeah, that's one of the questions people ask. And, he doesn't, I don't know what his answers are. I know before that, he would say, I've never been versed on it. Nobody has told me really anything.
Right.
Now he says he has been told, but he's not telling you anything,
Right.
And another thing Tom asks, he says, do you have any pictures of any of the stuff that you've seen?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do have a picture. I only have one picture and a video. And what this was, so I told you about that guy down the hallway that had to be 7 feet tall because his head was above the door frame. Door frame's a 6'8", right?
Yeah.
Prior to that happening, at Thanksgiving, I've had a lot. I always get I used to get my kids for Thanksgiving. My ex would get them for Christmas, and they lived with her. But whenever I was here with my kids, there was always paranormal activity, a lot of it, right? So in this particular year, that girlfriend moved in, right? So I remember she had this wax machine that you put your hands and your arms, and it's wax, and it's good for your skin. We all did it, my two kids, her and I. We go to bed, right? So we watch the football games. We go to bed. It's like 12:30. I hear walking up and down the hallway, right? So I figured it was the kids because, I closed the bedroom door. So in the morning, she gets up and she had to go to work and she used the bathroom in the hallway, right? So she leaves. I get up and I go into my bathroom, the master bathroom. On the mirror this is maybe 8:30 in the morning. On the mirror are 2 handprints like this, arm and hand, just the bone, no meat, like a skeleton. 2 skeleton prints on the wall, on the mirror, 6 fingers on both of them, 6 fingers, right? Just like that. And it's hollow in the middle. I take the tape measure, I measure it from elbow to fingertip, and the fingers were very small. The fingers were like that big, like it was like almost like a child's hand, that whatever it was doesn't use its hands. It has arms and hands and legs, but it doesn't build stuff. It doesn't really use them. They were very small fingers, the hands almost looked like a kid, like a 7-year-old kid's hands, right? So I measure it from elbow to fingertip. It's 3 inches longer than mine. So I said, okay, you put your arm out. I'm 6 feet. I have 72, 73 inches, right? So if you add 3 inches, right? 3, 6, 9, 12. I'm 6 feet. That's 7 feet tall. And I have a picture of it. And I also took my camera and I videoed it. And we saved that video. I have it. I could send it to anybody to look at. And I took a Polaroid picture of it. What happened was my girlfriend came home, and what she did is she took her makeup and she dusted it, and you could really see it then. And then I took a Polaroid picture of it, and I think I made the video at that point, with it. And again, I didn't take a sample and have it analyzed. It's amazing when that stuff happens to you. You really just want to get it out of the house. I just wanted to wipe the room clean.
Right.
And I didn't, but what happened was, so then the kids get up and I'm going to make breakfast. And I said to my son, he came down the hallway. I said, Nolan, what were you doing in the hallway last night? So I figured they wanted to just listen at the door to see if we were messing around or something, right? So he goes flush, his jaw drops. He goes, Dad, we thought that was you in the hallway. We heard somebody walking up and down the hallway. It was that thing. And my daughter said there was such a malevolent feeling in her bedroom. She said, Dad, I went in and I slept with my brother and we left the lights on. So I asked my son, he always slept with the lights on. I always slept with the house pitch black, not even a night light. And my kids would say, even with all this stuff going on, how do you sleep in such a black house? I now sleep with night lights in the hall, my bedroom, the kitchen. I don't want to be in pitch blackness, and I lost my train of thought of what I was going to say there, but that happens now with my age. But she went in and she said she slept in that room and put all the lights on. And one other thing happened to my daughter. She came over, her and her brother, they came over and she was sleeping in her bedroom. My son and his fiance was in his bedroom. She went downstairs to get a bottle of water. There was nothing I didn't have any water in the refrigerator. She went to the basement refrigerator and she got a bottle of water. Something was standing behind her. She said she can sense it. The presence, it was evil. The hairs on the back of her neck went up. She went upstairs. She's awake the whole time. She lays down. She said she no sooner laid down, the shadow person pressed completely into her body. She says, Dad, it hurt like you wouldn't believe. She's frozen. She can only move her eyes. She's surrounded by shadow people. They have no bottom half. It's like the torso, head and arms floating around. Shadow people. She said there's one in the doorway, and she could hear in her head a crowded room of everybody talking. And the one in the doorway says, now get the wording, when you're done with her, I want to try out the other 2, meaning my son and his fiance. So at that point, when it pulled out of her, she ran down the hallway, burst through my door, and Dad, you're not going to believe what happened. You're not going to believe what happened. And she told me. So we went down the hallway. We knocked on my son's door, and her and I are telling them the fiance is like swaying, eyes half closing, looked very clammy, and she's saying, I don't feel good. She goes, I got to get out of here. I said, I don't feel good. I don't feel good, is what she said. So my son packs up. They leave. This has got to be now close to 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. They pack up. They leave for Virginia to go home. I get a text from him. It's like a half hour after they left. He says, "Dad, I put my address in. I think it was Herndon, Virginia, and the GPS took us to the front of a cemetery." Not the only time that happened, right? But again, why are these shadow people attacking my daughter? What is this thing walking up and down the hallway that I finally saw, and it left these handprints, arm prints, you know? So I don't know. To me, it's very paranormal. It's very preternatural. It's very demonic, in my opinion. It really is. You know?
Well, you've given us a lot to think about tonight.
And very different than any other ufologist, because they don't talk this way.
No,
Right.
This went totally different than what I thought.
Yeah. Well, I could always tell you at another point about my best investigation, the 2008 investigation that I ended up on 4 TV series and Anderson Cooper. There could be another show just about that.
Oh,
too.
well, anytime you want to come back on, we'll be glad to have you.
Right.
And
Sounds good.
I think that we had a really fun time talking with you, and you really brought to light a lot of things that
Makes sense.
a lot of it that makes sense, a lot of it that we may not have known otherwise.
Well, it's stuff that
A
we
lot of it
discussed.
that makes you look and open your mind up a little
Yeah,
bit.
here's the one-
we've discussed it too.
Yeah.
That it may not be UFOs. It may be, paranormal.
I don't think it's from space. But here's one thing. Like I said, I wrote these 11 books. And, if you just go to Amazon, they're all on Amazon. I think most of them are on Barnes & Noble. But just put my name in, and all these books are going to come up. And, but I have different opinions in a lot of them. One book's Ancient Alien. One book is the government and time travel. And most of the other books are UFOs from space, that type of stuff. But my books are very thorough. And like you said, you learn some things. If you read my books, you'll see all of this information that you never came across, like the book, The Case for UFOs. It's all these little known facts about the UFO field that you don't hear anybody talk about. String theory of the unexplained, why the UFO field is actually demonic, So, and just for the public, anybody going to watch this, just go to Amazon, put John Ventry in, and you'll see 9 of the 11 books come up because I took the Mayan calendar down. Nobody's buying 2012 books anymore. So, but all the other ones are there.
Well, history does repeat itself, so it may be valid again in another 1,000 years. Well,
I do have an end time prophecy book there. I wrote it in 2011, and I think I updated it in 2016, called Apophis 2029, the asteroid, if you're familiar with that. There's a real asteroid called Apophis that in 2029, Friday, the 13th of April, 2029, it's going to pass below our satellites, underneath our satellites. That's in our gravitation.
That could cause some problems.
That's in our gravitational field. And it's the size, I think it's the size of the Eiffel Tower or something like that. And if it hits, I thought I remember reading that it would put a hole the size of Texas. It would definitely take out a major metropolitan area. But that's my one disaster book that's still up. And I think it's the best one I've ever written, although people tell me the alternative history of mankind is because it talks about the ancient alien and evolution versus creation. But I think the Apophis one, there's 4 storylines I tie together. It's like 450 pages. And then you get the asteroid, you get flooding, I don't want to tell you the end, but it has a UFO ending to it, like disclosure at the end.
Oh, wow. So, well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
I hope everybody enjoyed this show. And please join us here every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Central for Paranormal Nation Radio, Not So Normal. And in all the places that you're watching us now is where you can see us then. Please join us on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central for the Paranormal Pride. And whatever lucky guest spins the wheel this week that comes on, I will let you know who that is, and we will have a great show then too. And also you can see that show in all the same places that you're seeing this now. So, Carl, go for it.
Yeah, and you can watch us on the Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment's Facebook page. We want to thank them, and Things Network's Facebook page, which I'm part of Things Network. Denise and Ron's part of Things Network now. But also check out Dark Realm TV on your Roku device and everything. We're over there now too. So we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and we will see you again next Tuesday night. Everybody have a good evening.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.